This video is going to briefly explain how Ghana gained its independence and the role that it played in the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. So, to give you some background, Ghana actually gained its independence from Great Britain in 1957, and emerging from this independence was Ghana's newly elected leader, Kwame Nkrumah, and he had ambitious plans for Ghana and African unity. He was a huge advocate for Pan Africanism, which was basically the coming together and the union of all the different countries of Africa. And if you think back to the Scramble for Africa unit, how Great Britain and Belgium and Portugal and other countries in Europe had basically chunked up and divided Africa for their own economic gain, well, there was a lot of division among those different African countries, and Pan Africanism is the unity and the coming together of all those different countries after being colonized. So he was a strong advocate for this and the coming together of the African people. But along the way, he started to develop socialist views. So 1 year after independence, actually, this happens fairly quickly, Nkrumah had gotten Parliament to agree to the Preventative Detention Act. Now, this gave him the ability to detain anyone who opposed his ideas for up to 5 years without trial. And there's also an example of a government official within Ghana who was accused of organizing a coup against him. And there wasn't any truth behind this, but the official was actually arrested and jailed for 6 years based on no evidence at all. So became a very brutal leader very quickly after Ghana's independence. And the United States was looking at this the entire time, and they didn't do anything about this. They didn't provide any kind of aid or military assistance to Ghana to stage a coup, but they were basically just looking at it and saying, well, it wouldn't be a bad thing if Nkrumah got taken out of power. So there's a little bit of a conspiracy behind that. But in 1966, there was a coup that was implemented by two soldiers within Ganda's military, and they took Nkrumah out of power. He fled to Guinea, and he was in exile, and they pushed him out of power relatively quickly. So, in relations to the Cold War, it's obvious that the Soviet Union is looking at this early on when Nkrumah became the power, and they liked the idea of that socialist state that was creating within Ghana. And the United States obviously opposed this socialist state that was being created. So there was no support provided by the Soviet Union or by the United States, but they were both looking at this very intently and rooting for each side of this conflict. And eventually in 1966, the United States was happy that Nkrumah was taken out of power and that socialist government was no more.